Welcome to another episode of Your Money, Your Mission, the podcast designed to turn complex financial situations into actionable advice, powered by Johnson Financial Group. I'm Kelly Mold, and today we'll be discussing a topic that we get a lot of questions about, both from our podcast subscribers and from many of our business clients: how to attract and retain the most talented employees. Joining us today is Denise Domian, Chief Human Resources Officer with Johnson Financial Group. With over 20 years of career experience, Denise is a proactive human resources leader. I know this personally. She is adept at positioning people in the right roles to achieve optimal business results. Welcome, Denise.
Thank you. It's great to be here. And what a glowing review. Thank you.
We are truly happy to have you. So before we jump in, could you briefly tell us a little bit about your background in human resources?
Absolutely. I'll start with my background, which wasn't human resources. I started out as an accounting professional. Did that for about 7 years and decided that that was really not the best suited for me, and decided, what am I going to do next? And I really liked working with people. So I went into retail management and was in retail management and was recruited into human resources and hadn't really thought about it prior to that, and have been here ever since. So was with Bon-Ton Stores for 21 years, and half of that leading human resources. So, and so extremely happy to be at Johnson Financial Group. So,
and we are very lucky to have you.
Thank you.
And we are living in very interesting times, right?
Yes, we are.
Especially for HR, when you think about all the generations that are working together, and that what companies need from employees to be successful is evolving. So I'd like to start with the employer from that perspective. What do you think the employer is looking for in a new employee today?
Well, I think that today you want, obviously, the person that has the right skills. I mean, that's the basic of any foundation, right? You want somebody who can work with different personalities and different people. As you said, there are many generations in this workforce today. And so you have to be able to navigate working with different types of people. And then, of course, you also want somebody who can change with the times. I think there's so much that is changing all the time that you need people who can navigate and move with changes. Change is constant. We've all heard that saying, and I think it is so true. And if you don't have people that are flexible and can work within that, even if they have great skills today, it doesn't mean they're going to fit as we get to the future. So there is no one great fit, but I think that's a real key to success.
Right. And we hear a lot now that newer employees, younger employees in particular, have different expectations for the job. So could you shed some light on what a modern job seeker is typically looking for today?
Yeah, and I don't think it's necessarily younger. Okay. I think it's a more modern job seeker is looking for different things. And that spans across different ages. It's not just early career professionals, but everyone. And I think a lot of that has been influenced by social media, the pandemic. I know everybody's sick about talking about the pandemic, but it had a huge influence in how people think about their job today. And it used to be that people really compartmentalized work and home, or their out of work life. Today, people are really combining those things. It's almost like a puzzle with different pieces. And one of the pieces is work. One of the pieces is your family. One of the pieces is what you do recreationally. And then there's a financial component and a community component. And what they're trying to do is fit all those pieces together so that they have a comfortable life. And so when employers are looking at employing people, they can't just consider the job today. They have to think about a person's complete life and what it is that they're looking for to help support them to be happy, because they're not separating it today. They're looking for everything. And Community, how an employer supports community is so much more important. Development, how they're going to be trained and developed. Do they have all the tools they need in order to do their job? Those, of course, are standard today. Have always been important that you have the tools and the training and development. But I think there are so many more aspects that you need to consider. DEI is important. Communication. There's a lot of things that you have to think about. And so you need a lot of tools in your toolbox today.
That's really interesting, and it sounds like workplace culture has become such a critical element in putting all of that together. But cultures don't happen overnight, right?
No.
So how would you suggest that a company focus on creating that culture, especially if they've not typically looked at those things in that puzzle kind of piece reference?
So I think it's important to think about community, diversity, and transparency and communication. Those are the things to me that I think are really important today. You mentioned earlier younger job seekers, especially for younger job seekers. One of the things that we frequently get asked is, how are you participating in the community? What is it that you're doing? So start thinking about, we have pillars that we use within Johnson Financial Group that help to guide us in how we support our community. As an employer, you should think about those. Think about having pillars that really help guide you, because when an associate, and we call them associates at Johnson Financial Group, but when an employee is looking for something that's going to be important, are those aligned? And transparency is extremely important. They want to feel that they can trust their employer. So thinking about how you communicate, how you support, what are you doing to recognize, as well as just, making sure that you have transparency in how you do things. You can't tell people everything, of course.
Right.
But as much as you can, I think it's extremely important, even when it comes to salary. Many states today have guidelines that are requiring employers to be more transparent about pay ranges. That's not true in Wisconsin necessarily, but if you operate in other states, you probably already know this. But we at Johnson Financial Group even are transparent about our ranges, even though we aren't necessarily required to be. And it really helps people to understand, whether they feel like they're being treated fairly. So just some things to consider.
Yeah, they're excellent points. We've also seen some really creative benefit things that companies have tried to do over the years. Everything from flexible hours to pet insurance. Sometimes these feel a little bit like the flavor of the month. But are there creative benefits that you're seeing really make some sense that companies are considering?
I think wellness is something that people are looking for. One of the puzzles I didn't mention was, I said family, but I think with that comes health, right? And so they want to know that the company is doing things to help support their wellness. That's one thing. I've had people say that they've come to work for us because we have benefits for fertility. So you never know exactly what thing is going to speak to an individual, but looking at the entire landscape of what there is to offer and figuring out what you think aligns with, again, those pillars, but also what you're seeing people ask for when they come to interview with you. Because they do. They'll ask certain questions. And so figuring out from that what you feel is important from the candidate is going to really help guide you.
And turnover is another significant challenge. I know you mentioned at the beginning you had decades at a company. I, in my past, spent more than 20 years at a company. That's really not the landscape today. People move much quicker, and sometimes that's good and sometimes that's bad. But I know that companies still look at that as a big expense. You want to train and invest in people. So what advice would you give to a company who's really looking to create a kind of structure that allows for better client or employee loyalty and retention?
Again, that's where I think pay doesn't. Obviously people want to be paid fairly, so don't get me wrong. but it's not all about pay. And sometimes people focus so much on pay. But what's going to really make the difference to an employee staying longer is that connection. And that's the connection with their supervisor, the connection with the company, the connection with the vision. How well are you communicating what that vision is to your employees is going to help them to say, okay, yeah, I can get behind that. And I know where I'm heading. So again, I feel like I may be repeating myself. Transparency, communication, those speak volumes to people over a lot of other things. So you can have great benefits. Yes, that's important. You can have, a good salary. But what's going to really probably make the difference is, am I feeling connected to my company and that I'm not even going to take that call? Mm-hmm. Somebody calls me, you're like, no, thank you. I'm very happy where I am. So that's the first place you get people to, is to not even take the call. But, the other thing that I would say is, I mentioned communication. Having stay interviews can be helpful. Having skip levels with management. So skipping a level down to, 2 management levels to a leader, maybe interviewing and just talking to somebody within their area about, how are you doing? What's important? How are things going? Is there anything I can do for you? Of course, you can't do everything, but at least knowing what's important to them is going to help to solidify that retention strategy.
That makes great sense.
Yeah.
So you and I were talking earlier. You have a daughter who has got one more year left in college before she enters the workforce. So
nerve-wracking.
It's exciting too,
it is.
Right? So for a young person that's about to enter the job market, what advice would you have for them in terms of conducting a successful interview?
Well, I think the first thing is to ask some of those questions about, what is it that is the vision of the organization? Where are they heading? What is the strategy around people? Like, what is important? What do you try and do to make sure that associates are feeling like they're taken care of in the organization? It's okay to ask those questions. I think sometimes people are hesitant to ask too much about an organization and what their strategy is around people. But I think you want to make sure it's a relationship that you're getting into, mm-hmm. right? It's not really, obviously it's not a personal relationship necessarily, but if it's done right, it can feel very personal, right? But it's like any relationship. Are you on the same page? Are you communicating well? Do you feel a connection when you are in interviewing with the people that hopefully you're going to be reporting to? If you don't feel a connection, you might want to at least maybe have another dialogue, or ask yourself whether it's really the right fit. Your gut doesn't tell you everything, but you should listen to your gut a little bit too. What's it telling you? Does this place feel good? Did they call me back? Did they respond to me timely? Did they leave me hanging? Wondering, did I do okay? Am I still in the process? Am I out? I just think, how do you feel during that interview process should really be your guiding force. And then ask people who might have worked for the organization. What is it that you feel has been your experience? Is it good? What would you say are some of the opportunities? Do your homework. Mm-hmm. You can go out and look at what's online is being, might be said about an organization, but the reality is sometimes all you get from that are the negative things. Mm-hmm. It helps. Uh-huh. But you might want to just see if you know anybody who knows anybody, mm-hmm. and then ask them how their experience has been.
So are there any tips you have for an employer who's trying to figure out where do they look for the brightest and most talented employee?
Keep your eyes open. Participate in the community. Network. Go to events. I mean, that is remarkably effective. You know, we all use job boards and there's all kinds of tools out there. Those are great. Shouldn't ignore those. But being present in the community, utilizing your sales force to help recruit other people that might be like them. If you have a really good performer, who do you know? Do you know we get so many people as referrals? Almost 30% of our hires are referrals. That's remarkable. That means we're getting people that we already have a little bit of information on, right? We're fairly sure they're going to be successful, or we hope, based on that referral. So referrals are great, participating in the community, obviously the usual job boards, but spread yourself around. Don't just do what you think would be traditional. Go to a place where, veterans, perhaps you haven't really thought about veterans. Look at the veterans boards that are out there. Certainly diversity boards. Really kind of keep a lot of, again, tools in your toolbox.
This is really great information. Thank you so much for being with us today, Denise.
It's been a joy.
And thank all of you for joining us today. We appreciate you tuning in. And if you have any questions you'd like us to explore, be sure to go to the show notes, type your question, and hit submit. And be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss out on any future episodes of Your Money, Your Mission, the podcast designed to turn complex financial situations into actionable advice, powered by Johnson Financial Group.
This podcast is not a recommendation to buy or sell any investment or financial product. Whether a particular investment or financial solution is right for you depends on the facts of your particular situation. Please consult your own professional advisors prior to taking any action based on the content of this podcast. Wealth management services are provided through Johnson Bank and Johnson Wealth Inc., Johnson Financial Group companies. Additional information about Johnson Wealth Inc., a registered investment advisor, and its investment advisor representatives is available at advisorinfo.sec.gov, not FDIC insured, no bank guarantee, may lose value.